Wow, is all I gotta say. There are individuals where when you strike up a conversation, you can immediately see the level to their thinking of how in-depth they'll think about a certain topic. And I think our guest that we have on today, Chip Conrad, who is someone that you've looked up to, someone who you, what was he your weightlifting coach?
Yeah, I would call Chip a mentor for me at various time points. So to give a brief history of me and Chip, just because we kind of just get right into it, and we have just a lot of fun on this podcast, and we're all tangenting a little bit. I first met Chip when I did my first sanctioned powerlifting meet in 2007, which was at Body Tribe, his gym, and then slowly got to kind of meet him. He was the promoter, he was the head judge, he ran that. And just getting to talk to him over time, I realized how much depth he had, and the little things he would drop into conversations. Like I found out, oh wait, you used to hang out with Mel Siff.
Yeah.
Well, hold on, you're having Tommy Kono come present, and you've done that multiple times. When I taught at Bryan College, which is a personal training, it has a personal training program in it, along with a massage therapist one and others. But anyway, you can get an associate's degree in personal training there. I was an instructor there from 2011 2012 before I moved to New Zealand. I used to have him come and present about movement and about what the corporate fitness structure was like, and how there are other options besides just working at 24-Hour Fitness or CalFit here in Northern California. There's a lot of, as we talked about in our Sacktown culture episode, there's a lot of boutique, unique gyms, so you don't have to get kind of up in that meat grinder, if you will, of the fitness culture. But beyond him speaking to my students, and beyond him hosting powerlifting meets, he was my Olympic lifting coach for the few months before I moved to New Zealand. I wanted to get more exposure to general strength and conditioning if I was going to pursue a PhD in strength and conditioning. And during that time, I got to see him multiple times per week, and just really get to think about his philosophies and see how much that's what everything was based on, was a philosophy of lifting, a philosophy of movement. And I think you're going to get a really interesting taste of what modern physical culture looks like, how that differs from kind of the mainstream fitness, and how it really cuts to the heart of what iron culture is about, not just drawing threads between these disparate tribes, but all of us realizing that by being a part of a tribe, while that gives us a way to think about things, and it gives us a community to belong to, it also puts limitations on the way we see what we do that can sometimes be harmful. It can sometimes result in you spending 10 years to only get slower since you were a teenager, or in my case, to get hurt anytime I do anything besides powerlifting or bodybuilding.
I think the best analogy that I could use here would be that I saw there's a little bit of Moss wrestling that Chip did with Eric, was seeing Obi-Wan approach Yoda for supremacy, and I'm Anakin, let's face it, and him still, he's Yoda. Yeah, with some of the things when it comes to exploring some of these aspects, or being as open as he is, you're contributing a hell of a lot when it comes to research, when it comes to bodybuilding. He is one of the pioneers of so many things. And when you said those names, Mel Siff, Tommy Kono, for those that don't know, it's like a legendary weightlifter, legendary strength coach. All these individuals, all the strongmen that he's interviewed, there's a humility to him, a certain level of humbleness that I respect. About not only that, what I said before, how introspective he is with his thinking, his self-awareness, and his ability then to try and think independently. And so, jokingly, I think this is the title because we don't know before it goes up, but why the fitness industry isn't about fitness.
Why the fitness industry isn't fit, if you want to keep it a little sexier.
Isn't fit, yeah. We got to make the title sexier.
We got to make a product out of this podcast.
Yeah, and that's so I think if you're a fitness entrepreneur, if you're a trainer, if you're someone that just likes to lift, and you're looking at the long-term aspects of lifting, okay, I want to do this for the rest of my life, I think you'll get a lot of insights.
Absolutely. This is true to the heart of what this podcast is about, iron culture. And we're really excited to have Chip on because he speaks to things that, like you said, I really do think he has another level of depth that I hope to get to one day.
Oh, I think you got the depth, Coach.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Just next time, good luck with the Moss wrestling against him.
Yeah, let's just hope I don't tear a hamstring or hurt my back or anything.
That is probably what I was most impressed by, your willingness to do it, and that's something, dispelling that, where you did, bodybuilding show, and now you're right back at it in the swing of things, doing it, where it's like, just looking at you, I'm like, you're very lean. Is a hamstring going to get ripped here?
And then the day after, I pulled a max deadlift.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that was smart, but I certainly feel like it's important.
So you've learned none of the lessons Chip was talking about.
I've learned nothing what Chip has learned.
We said not conforming to a certain identity or version of yourself.
Correct. Well, I don't know how many bodybuilders are doing a 1RM deadlift.
It's true.
3 days. But basically, what I'm saying is my ego runs my life.
Yeah.
And
Our lives, iron culture.
That's right.
It's the cult.
It's the iron culture of domineering egos.
Yeah, I hope everyone enjoys this episode. I think they will. And you might be the first guest we've had, Chip, and that's why I know you're a special one, who has successfully joined in on our pre-game ritual, either of clapping or saying something. We've said, and we've had how many PhDs, Coach, on this podcast, approximately?
Man, we've had a number of PhDs. I actually don't think I could count them. It's double digits for sure.
Yeah. Too many, some would say.
And we've sometimes even asked them to clap with us.
Oh, we've asked no, there was probably 50% of our episodes, Eric, who, really focuses on giving easy to follow instructions to everyone. He said, all right, folks, what we're going to do is a clap on 3. So we're going to clap on 3 is how he'll do it. And we do that before the episode begins just to get the audio lined up. It's easier for Brandon, our audio engineer.
Shout out, Brandon.
Shout out to the homie. And without fail, no one has joined in. Not because they're uncomfortable. No one's nervous. Everyone, when they begin the episodes, seem very comfortable. But no one, it's a metronome, so it's not like a 1, 2, a 1, 2, 3. Where it's like I have no idea what's going on. You're just like 1, 2, 3, clap, right?
Yeah.
So Chip,
I think it's because I'm inherently untrustworthy, and they can see that I look manipulative when I say it. And like, he's gonna make me do something I don't want to do.
I'm hearing that I am simply the most obedient of any of your guests so far.
Obedient, or maybe observant.
Yeah.
Let's go with that, because otherwise I'm just conforming.
Conforming to the best damn podcast in the world.
Conforming to a nonconformist podcast.
Can't go wrong.
Now, Chip, what do you think about the title of this podcast, Honest Opinions? The real way we wanted to spell it was Iron Culture, but cult would be in capital letters of culture. So C-U-L-T capitalized, and then, U-R-E lowercase.
Well, that would imply that we're all very obedient.
Yeah.
Except for one of us.
Yeah. Two of us.
Are we both
you are spelling it with a
co-leaders?
K, though, right? You just put a K instead of a C, because that would be cool.
Iron Culture. It's like Special K, like the cereal.
Yeah.
There's something unique. So that's why so many businesses actually, and shout out to your gym, Body Tribe, they come up with unique ways of spelling things. Actually, I could say this out loud. Now, my pre-workout, before we rebranded as Ouroboros, one of the names we were going to go with was actually just Phoenix, but spelled differently. And there's several ways that you could spell it that no one so far has incorporated yet.
F-E-E-N-I-X.
That's exactly the one. Yeah, but if it was F-E-E-N-I-X, I said to my partner, Ryan, I said, first off, fuck the Phoenix. It's been overused. Ouroboros is immortal. It's the snake that eats itself, the serpent.
Right.
Ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia.
What's in your pre-workout? My own foot.
My own foot. I'm eating myself, midsummer style, bro.
Yep.
Ooh.
I've seen videos of that. It's not their foot they were eating, though.
Marilyn Manson fan.
Yeah. Sure, let's go with that.
Yeah.
Some home videos are best left at home.
Let's just say good yoga practice.
Yes, sir.
Good body control. Coach, what do we got on tap today?
Well, so first I just want to say that Chip Conrad is someone who I have looked up to, learned from, and just had the pleasure of knowing. Mm-hmm. And he's also one of those guys who doesn't do well with compliments. He always has to be funny right after it happens. So this is going to be, my goal is to make him as uncomfortable as possible in this episode.
Winning.
His grip just keeps getting more tense on that microphone.
Exactly.
White-knuckled.
And we're going to talk about grip. We're going to talk about strength.
I even have my stronger grip shirt on here.
Perfect.
Yep.
So the first time I met Chip was at a 2007 powerlifting meet, APA. Mm-hmm. There was one of the few powerlifting meets that actually had a raw division at the time, over at Body Tribe, at its previous location. And I thought I was in the wrong place because I came in and there was just a bunch of artwork on the walls.
Plants everywhere.
A dog ran up to me. Yep. I was very happy, but I also thought, is this where the weigh-ins are, or is this where the art show is? And the answer was yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So Body Tribe has been a staple of Midtown Sacramento, like, fitness scene. But also, I think the way Chip put it yesterday, it's the best known gym outside of Sacramento in Sacramento. Is that how you put it?
Yeah, because Sacramento actually doesn't know anything about us.
Yeah.
But as a Sacramento gym, we're internationally known.
Yep.
But yeah, Sacramento couldn't care less about us.
Yeah, so it's funny. Not a lot of people know about Body Tribe, but if you just simply do some Googling around, like, for example, I was reaching out to hopefully get, Dave Draper on. But Dave Draper is, at a certain point in his life and his career where that's just respectfully, it's not what he's doing. It's all good.
Well, you're just not good enough.
He doesn't like me. That's okay.
Apparently
But
he's not the only one I've heard.
rude.
Wow.
Rude.
Sorry.
Rude.
You invite me on your podcast. You invite me on your podcast.
That's from my control.
And then
just
thank
keep
you.
that in
Thank
your
you.
face,
Own that.
buddy.
I'm gonna flex.
There you
The
go.
camera
There you go.
here.
Eric's just winning from the get-go with the public.
I'm just sitting here.
It's like I was gonna say quickly tangent. When we're recording the episodes in that other studio, I was always looking over at your arm because it was just perfectly angled.
It's just a habit.
You're like,
It's
"I'm
a
not even
habit
trying,
at
bro.
this
Bro,
point. Yeah.
just natural."
So anyway, I Googled. So I'm Googling Dave Draper, and one of
the legendary,
Dave Draper, the 1965 Mr. America Dave Draper, the 1970 Mr. World Dave Draper.
More importantly, Beverly Hillbillies Dave Draper.
Yes, exactly. Yep. So the blonde bomber, anyway. And so I'm Googling and I'm looking for his stuff, and I find a review by Dave Draper of what? A presentation of Dan John and Chip Conrad. So here's Chip Conrad getting his praises sung while presenting with Dan John. And I'm like, this guy never said anything about this.
Yeah.
And then casually one other time back when I was back in town, I want to say 2012 or 2013, I brought up something about, I think, stretch shortening cycle or whatever. And he was like, yeah, I was having this conversation with Mel Siff. I think we were staying at his home. And I was like, wait, stop it. Hold on. Rewind the phone. Why are you hanging out with Mel Siff?
Yeah.
And he starts to tell me about these weekend retreats that he did with Mel Siff. And then, he says, hey, while you're here in town, we've got Tommy Kono coming by. Do you want to be part of that? And I was like, you can only drop so many bombs on one person's mind before their head explodes in 1 second.
And for those that don't know, that's legendary weightlifter Tommy Kono, legendary strength coach Mel Siff, legendary bodybuilder Dave Draper. So just three incredibly respected individuals.
Yeah.
Yeah.
R.I.P. to Tommy Kono. Those who haven't seen the documentary that's recently been out, that's really
tip
cool.
this to him, right?
Absolutely. Sorry, Mike. We're just gonna pour water on your table. But hey, you're gonna be fine with it because you respect Tommy Kono.
Yeah, so the best analogy I can give what I see between you two is that if you were to meet my brother, you would realize that I'm but a pale imitation of who he is because he's the older brother. And so every positive quality that I potentially have, all the negatives are my own, but the positive qualities, it's actually just my brother. I see a lot of inspiration, even not to get too into it, but we have a fantastic book here, Are You Useful? Chip Conrad's latest. And Eric, what can I say, Eric, about you? There's something in the
pale
works.
imitation of Chip Conrad, what we were getting at there.
No, I was going to say, it's you have a concept, there's something that you're pursuing. I would say it's parallel.
Yeah.
But Chip did it first.
Yeah, I think basically
From the Simpsons to your South Park, apparently.
Absolutely, but you also realize that where I wanted to take the art form, you were like, but that's just shitty. Like so basically, Chip has helped lifters find meaning, and I'm trying to help bodybuilders find meaning. An inherent group of people who don't care about meaning.
Right.
And it's all
You picked a niche, that's for sure.
A niche of hey, I want you to find deeper meaning. Like, we don't care.
All two of you. All two or three of you.
Will that help me? Hand raise, coach. Will that help me get leaner? It's like, probably not.
But you will mean something more than.
Wait, stay. Come back here.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a reason I don't make any money. Is because, when you're trying to get people to think for themselves and have free thought, nobody wants to buy that.
It's interesting. Chip said that, and he's the only one that conformed to our boom shakalaka. So,
yep.
The
irony.
There's a time to be obedient. That's what I've learned in all my years of wisdom.
in the bedroom, on this podcast.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So what we've got Chip on today to talk about is first, I think, just some cool storytelling of the things you've happened to be around for the things you've documented. For example, in 2012, you interviewed, I think, almost all the world's strongest man competitors, or a good chunk of them, which is pretty cool. There's just so many cool things you've done, which I'd love to get into. You've traveled around. You've had some very cool conversations. But at the heart of it all is that, and I don't want to mischaracterize you, that you see yourself as a physical culturist. Is that accurate?
Maybe, yes. Yeah, we can say that, but I would almost warn people that I'm an angry physical culturist to a degree. It's in fact, I'm going to warn you now that I will love to tell stories. There's probably going to be a rant or two that comes out of me. So a few years ago at a workshop, somebody called me the Henry Rollins of physical culture, and okay, I'll take that. So I see a lot of things that are just being done wrong. And, as I mentioned, being the purveyor of free thought, I don't see a lot of that. And so hopefully my stories will lead people to think more.
Right.
And if they don't, I will yell at you.
Hey, I think we welcome that here, Omar, don't we?
Old man yelling at a cloud, classic.
Absolutely.
Can't go wrong.
Well, here's the thing.
As long as you can deadlift a lot. Yeah.
I have a little bit of age behind me, and hopefully as you age, chronology doesn't build your dogma. It actually, hopefully you can go into the aging process. Every year you chip away at your dogma and your eyes open a little. So I'm hoping now when I yell at the kids to get off my lawn, it's not because I'm trying to hermeticize myself into this isolation and I want them to run away. I want them to get off my lawn because there's a great big world out there instead.
Right.
And so that's, I'm hoping, this is my dream, that I'm a grumpy old man, but for reason.
No, I must say that when we went yesterday to Body Tribe and you showed us a little bit of Moss wrestling, your gym, actually what was really cool, you had a carpet laid out where Eric described in 2007 when he went to APA powerlifting meet, where it's this intersection between art and lifting, where even you have a couch when you walk in, which we can make a, casting couch joke, but there's a bunch of books on the side. How you have the boxing bag set up. You have, is it a wrestling circle I saw? Is that in the corner? There's actually how you organize your gym. There's clear intent behind it, and even though no one, we came at a time where it was just us, so we can learn about Moss. There you could feel kind of that ethos or that spirit in the gym.
There's something that's very important to me. My gym arose from a philosophy. There's a philosophy first, then a gym built. Unfortunately, what we're seeing in the industry today is people are buying other people's philosophies.
Yeah.
Every program and every certification is a product, and so we buy somebody else's philosophy and then we build a gym based on somebody else's thought. So everybody else is using prefabricated thought to create their gyms. And 16 years ago when I started Body Tribe, it was because I had this idea, this dream, this philosophy of movement and strength, and it needed a sanctuary for it. And so I think that building a sanctuary from a philosophy first, I hate to say it's unique, but I don't see it done a lot.
Yeah.
I would say it's pretty unique. I think obviously there's no such thing as a completely original thought. And I would say, and I'm very proud to say, that you've been hugely influential on the philosophies I've developed.
Well, I'm proud to say you've developed philosophies. I mean,
it was a long shot, but it happened.
Yeah.
But I also look back, and I think one of the greatest gift you've given me, Chip, is simply the awareness that there is value in developing a philosophy. And then looking backwards, and actually, Omar, you and I talked about this, is that a lot of the times art or philosophy or the way we conceptualize and find meaning in something is not always intentional and being prospective, but sometimes retrospective. And I realized, you know what? Like the thing we're doing with 3D Muscle Journey has been present at various stages and in vogue and out of vogue. And that's cool.
Yeah. Homage. I mean, there's nothing wrong. If something great happened before, do it again.
Yes, absolutely. And maintaining the threads of the elements of physical culture, which are still relevant today, beneficial, and can perhaps give a lot more richness and hopefully sustainability to those who do want to get into it, I think is what's really important. That's why I see you as the modern physical culturist, in that you're like, obviously not everything from the era of bodybuilding do I subscribe to, but certain underpinnings of it I do. Like, for example, I don't see a muscular body as the masculine ideal, because we've learned in modern times that women also have muscle. This is something I learned in my PhD.
Yeah. Only recently. Recent revelation.
Yeah, they move through the via
Well, they're
contraction.
still studying that, I think. I'm not sure. I think the jury's still out.
It could be just kind of like amorphous, just like cloud floating. But I think they contract their muscles and move as well. Yeah.
It's a bit of an aside, but that's me. I'm tangent boy. There's a woman that not enough people know about who, unfortunately, she passed about 5 years ago. Her name was Bonnie Pruden, and I came across Bonnie Pruden through a series of events where someone brought me a record. She put out these fitness records, which were music, and to the music she would give you moving cues. And the album covers are always a little ridiculous. Like you can find them on a lot of people's lists of weird album covers, and nobody remembers who she is, unfortunately. But I looked at the back of the album. It was given to me as a joke. Somebody found it in a used record store and gave it to me as a joke. And I flipped it over and read her little bio. And I thought, why don't I know who this woman is? It just listed these things that she did. And I thought, oh my gosh. So I had to find out, at that time, I had to find out if she was still alive. And I looked her up and found her online. And I reached out to her and she said, come on out and interview me. Because I asked her if I could get her on camera. And she said, come on out. So I went to Arizona, where she's from, and hung out with her. Allison, my partner over at Body Tribe, her and I went out there and we spent a couple days with her. And then we went out there again a year later, and we got to know her really well. And she's a fascinating woman. Look up Bonnie Pruden. I'll put out more information about her soon. Someday I'm going to transfer all that to an actual video and finish this project. But the reason I brought her up, not only should you know who she is, but she, talking about women and muscles, her quote, which I always love, was, under every curve is a muscle. I thought that was brilliant.
That's awesome.
And this was from somebody who was trying to teach that back in the 50s.
That's insane.
Yeah. She was very progressive in many ways.
That's incredible that you got the opportunity to speak with her while she was still around and speaking.
She was amazing. You want to hear stories. Just amazing woman. And what she did.
Do.
She was she was sexy for 96. So she had stories about, she had a lot of first ascents to her name. So she was an avid climber. She's been featured in climbing documentaries because she was women climbers were very rare back in the 30s and 40s. She was the first woman ski patrol in America.
Wow.
Which was a big deal. And then, of course, she was a dancer. She had her own TV. She had her own spot on the Today Show, I think it was, for a while. And then she had her own show. But it didn't get as popular as Jack LaLanne's show because her show was way more in-depth. Like, she would talk about... It was like half Oprah, half fitness show.
Right.
I mean, I remember one of her episodes. I have a few of her episodes at home. And one of her episodes talked about suicide.
Wow. Back then.
Yeah.
We don't talk about it now.
This is in the 60s, right. And so she would talk about it, and then she'd do a little movement section where you'd move, and then she'd bring on an expert about something, and that expert could be a psychologist or something like that. So there was a lot of mind-body connection before that term was a thing, and that was her jam. And another quick story about her: she was the fitness expert for the Today Show back in the 60s. I think it was the Today Show, and they wanted to bracket her segment with commercials of diet pills. And she said, I don't do that.
That's not my thing.
That's not my thing. And they said, well, we got to pay for the slot. She goes, well, I don't do diet pills. And she quit. She left the show.
Respect.
Yeah. So a woman of pure integrity all the way.
That's amazing.
So Bonnie Pruden, look her up.
Well, I think I want to hear a lot more stories. I can think of other people I want to ask you about, but I think to give more context to the listener, can we start with just your story? So we know you started Body Tribe 16 years ago. Mm-hmm. I know you as a weightlifter, Moss wrestler, strongman competitor, trainer, Olympic lifter, power lifter. I probably said some things twice, and generally an annoying person. But tell us where did that all start?
You have to add the second one. You got to sandwich compliment someone, coach.
Well, I wanted I wanted to be an integritous.
Okay.
He has to knock me down before he builds me up.
Yeah.
I
I need to
understand.
protect my own ego.
Like
a
any
little
good
bit here.
manipulator.
Exactly. Any person you don't really
Like
trust.
any powerful narcissist
Yes.
needs to
Absolutely.
manipulate me. My story? Was that what we were talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay.
We're done making fun of me now.
No, never.
Okay.
I didn't grow up an athlete. I grew up a musician, or at least a wannabe musician. And I loved playing like kids are supposed to do. We're supposed to climb trees and explore. And I was lucky enough to grow up in Hawaii, and it is as cool as you think it's going to be. Yes, there are trees to climb everywhere. Yes, you can go up into the mountains 1 hour and down to the beach the next hour. All these things are true.
Yep.
And if you have the freedom to be able to do that, back when I was growing up, our boundaries were much larger as children. Like these days, I don't think you're allowed to go to the end of the block,
Right.
or beyond that. But back in my day, I grew up in the 70s, and you could wander around neighborhoods.
Which part of Hawaii did you grow up in?
Honolulu, a suburb of Honolulu. Like 10 years before I lived there, it was swampland.
Mm-hmm. And
so they built this like the house we're sitting in now. This popped up in the last 10 years. That was my neighborhood in Hawaii.
Gotcha.
And it was glorious. We had a valley we could go up into, and then the ocean the other side, and you could do that all in one day. So growing up there, I had this cultivated a sense of play and exploration. When you hit high school, you're told you're not supposed to play anymore, or if you do, it's got to be sports.
Yeah.
It's got to be competitive play.
Play with a purpose.
You got to play with a purpose, and that one purpose has to be competition. Suddenly play becomes win at all costs, and that didn't appeal to me at all. And so you're told you can't play like a kid anymore. You're a teenager now. You're a young adult. You're not childish.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna play, you got to be on a team. I didn't want to be on a team, and so like a lot of kids that age, you either join a team or you stop playing. And I stopped playing, and it wasn't until well into my 20s that I discovered I want to play some more. And when I started moving and finding my relationship with my body again, I was 127 pounds going to college, and I decided I want to learn how to do things with my body. And so I started lifting, and I started the same route everybody starts, and that's bodybuilding magazines. This was pre-internet.
Right. So you started out with the best and then just kind of moved down from there.
I just dropped it all from there, yeah.
Yep.
So, so, you get your Muscle and Fitness magazine, which is the same magazine every single month, just with a different person on the cover. And so I learned the same articles about how to build your chest and how to build your biceps. And after a couple years of this, I realized this isn't doing it for me. I don't want to think about body parts. I'm not learning how to do anything. And so then strength athletics started calling to me. And powerlifting was the first drug of choice.
Powerlifting was the first.
Now, Chip, for context, what year would this be around for?
This is mid-90s.
Okay, and powerlifting at this point in time, people take it for granted how powerlifting has really become popular in the last 10 years.
There's a meet a week now, yeah.
Yeah, so describe your journey in the mid-90s powerlifting.
I was contacted. I was the fitness director of a gym. I rose the ranks of a gym really fast. I started off, being a member, and then worked the front desk, and then a trainer within a very short period of time, because I was this dedicated little iron head. I rose the ranks to fitness director pretty quick, which was a position that held absolutely no power in this particular corporation. They didn't give a damn about fitness. They cared about getting members. As most corporate gyms do. In fact, you know how the corporate gym works. They don't want you to show up at the gym. They want you to pay and then get the hell out. So
lower maintenance fees.
Yeah. So there I was, this eager little trainer, thinking that the fitness industry was a wonderful, safe place. How wrong I was. But I got a call from Scott Taylor from the APA. Mm-hmm. I had no idea who he was. He called me out of the blue. He ran the American Powerlifting Association. He said, "Look, we're looking to have inroads into California." There was at the time, there was probably only a dozen powerlifting federations, not the 3 dozen there are now. But he wanted to start doing meets in California. And I just thought that was a sign. It's like, well, I kind of am getting into this powerlifting scene. Let's host a meet.
Yep.
And funny enough, I couldn't host it at my gym because we didn't have the space or the equipment. The gym I was working at the time, it was machines and more machines, and then a little coupling of free weights in the corner.
All you need.
Yeah. So every time they wanted me to figure out what equipment they wanted, every year we got to buy some new equipment. And I said, squat racks, this. And they said, that's great. We're going to get treadmills. So every year we acquired 3 or 4 new treadmills. Anyway, again, I'm going to rant about corporate fitness. Let's back down. Breathe.
No. No, let's rile you up. I like it. You actually, so Chip,
You
just as
have a devil and an angel on each shoulder.
Yeah.
the person that you need to meet, and the only thing I would say, not that you've said, but people have said about you that I would say might be a little contentious, only because I know someone else is. They said you're the Henry Rollins of fitness.
Yeah.
Sean Kelly of Fortis. I'm not even talking about how you act, because that's what they're relating when they say the Henry Rollins, and I understand that. Sean looks like Henry Rollins, but he has an article just to show you some of the what I'd call old school iron enthusiast, because I do see parallels between you two, and Sean's the man. Is he wrote an article, and then eventually it did get published by T Nation like 4 years ago randomly.
Wow.
Called I'm blanking on the exact one, but Planet Fitness. You guys have Planet Fitness here?
Oh,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
The problem with Planet Fitness. And so he breaks it all down, the corporate structure, how they try to enable your worst qualities, how they're not actually about fitness, how they don't care about you, the membership, all that stuff. So, no, please, Chip, if you want to talk about that stuff, I'm all ears.
Well, I'll give you just a quick insight. The corporation I worked for ran about 10 or 11 gyms at the time. They had, of course, the fitness director, and then they had the aerobics director, and then they had the front desk director, marketing director. They have directors for all the departments. The marketing director and the front desk director and the main managers, they all met with all the other marketing directors and the corporate heads regularly, weekly, if not monthly, sometimes even twice a week, to go over plans and that sort of thing. I was fitness director for 7 years. I met with all the other fitness directors in the corporation twice.
Good old 3.5-year plans.
Yeah, exactly. We all got together
Because everyone was just so capable, Chip.
Oh my gosh. We all got together and we all had all the fitness directors were full of ideas, and we laid them all out. We're like, this is we need to do this stuff. And they were pretty smart people. And the corporate heads were like, you're right, we need to do this stuff. And then you wait and you wait and you wait. 3 years later, you get a phone call. Hey, we got to do this again. Let's all meet. Nothing was implemented. So they didn't care less about actually training people, making people better, or promoting fitness. The marketing director was the most important person.
Right.
And then the front desk director to make sure everybody smiled. So that's how corporate fitness works, kids.
Well, Chip, here's a question for you. You would have more of a perspective than I, but I worked at a big box gym, a boutique gym I moved on to later that was more on the high end as a fitness director. And my observation from talking with the GM, the general manager, and not the owners, but all the people on the manager level, is that to me, they were all dead souls, where intuitively they knew a lot of the things that they were doing that were top down from corporate that they needed to do in terms of pumping memberships and even the way that they talk to trainers, where they would put scare tactics like, you need to sell 100 sessions a month, otherwise, like, we have a lot of people that apply to our gym to be trainers, so if you're not producing, unfortunately, we're gonna have to look at someone else. Just these really weird tactics, not a conducive environment both for members and also for the employees. But there's a human behind each and every single one of them, and I could tell if you traced their journeys far back enough, a lot of the managers, they had genuine journeys and intents that were former bodybuilders. There's one guy in particular who will remain anonymous, but he was a former professional wrestler, and he actually was really interested in lifting, but through kind of the corporate machine, he became something that I could tell he detested. And he would never say anything vocally, like, man, this is fucked up, like what we're doing, like, oh, I can't believe we're trying to pump these. A common tactic was to sell 96 training sessions was the incentive for a trainer to do it, because if they did it, they'd make an extra $100 or $200. The 96 sessions cost the individual $8,000, and they go on this absurd payment plan. And he'd be telling people to do this, but I could tell looking into their eyes, a lot of these managers, that they were following orders, but they weren't feeling it. And I'm just curious, your perspective, one, on that. Do you think that's more a symptom of a much larger corporate issue, or is it corporate fitness or the fitness industry? Because I only have experience in the fitness industry to say that's what I observed. I'm not sure if it's larger than that.
A friend of mine many years ago made a joke that I've stuck with the entire time. He called the fitness industry, he referred to it as the fitness industrial complex. And I've stuck with that since. I full-heartedly believe that. everything from philosophies, ideas, to actual tactile products have become products. When anything becomes a category, it becomes a product. And without us necessarily even knowing it, we're always selling and buying products. You have CrossFit, product. Powerlifting, product. Those are we think those are disciplines. No, they're products. Weightlifting, product. Bodybuilding, product. These are all products. And then you have the actual tactile products. You got the shoes and the straps and the equipment and the kettlebells and then you have the programs. Those are products. You have the certifications. Those are products. Anytime we have a category, it is a product, and that runs the industrial complex. And unfortunately, it is so pervasive into our culture that we don't even know we're being played that way. So we believe that cardio is a thing. We believe that weight training is a thing, and we buy them. We buy that product. We buy that product. We believe that CrossFit is a thing, and we buy that product. We believe that powerlifting is a thing. These aren't actually things.
Yeah.
They're vague ideas. And we spend a lot of money buying and selling these. And trainers and gym owners are the biggest consumers of the product.
Yeah.
It's like a wholesale market. We have to buy it because we have to sell it.
Yeah.
And so we go and we buy our certification, we buy our program, we buy our equipment, and then we have to sell the ideas of those things. And so that's what it's become. Movement is now become a collection of products. And I am diligently anti-cliche, but as soon as you create a brand name, or as soon as you create an idea or a program, you've created a limitation, a set of limitations and a set of cliches. And so it goes with everything from yoga to weightlifting. That entire spectrum, that seems like a spectrum. Those seem like completely different things. No, those are categories of movement that we're now buying and selling.
Yep.
And anytime we do that, we've simply created an Instagram page of memes. And that's as deep as the philosophy of any of those go.
Sadly enough, I would agree.
Yeah.
I agree, and I do wonder if the root of that is the economics, or if the root of that is also influenced by different types of thinking and different ways of learning.
Right.
Because I will say that it is a little easier to grasp a concept when it is oversimplified, when there are artificial boundaries put around it, and when you can put it in a box, in a schema.
We're a tribal people. We want to identify with a tribe.
Yes.
And so if we can say, I am a power lifter, I am a CrossFitter, I do yoga, whatever, we almost purposely put ourselves in these boxes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, and I get that.
Yeah.
We can be part of tribes. The problem is, as trainers, as the leaders of these tribes, we're not promoting free thought. We're actually promoting the limitations that come with that tribe.
It's all about what you do with it.
Yeah, every one of those categories has a limitation. You're not buying freedom when you buy into one of those categories. You're not buying the freedom of powerlifting. You're now limited to 3 lifts. You're not buying the freedom of CrossFit. You're now limited to those, 15 lifts done fast for speed. You're actually not buying freedom when you do yoga.
Yeah.
You think I love yoga because there's a lot of great movement in the yoga community, but there's a lot of lack of free thought. For something that is supposed to be empowering, it's actually just as limited as any of the other disciplines. And it sells itself as this deep-rooted philosophy, but it comes with just as many limitations as any other movement discipline.
Yeah.
And so all of them probably, and here's the tricky part about the fitness industry. You were talking about this earlier where you mentioned how a lot of these gym owners and trainers and manager people probably had a soul.
Yeah. That's the scariest part.
They all start with good intentions.
Yeah.
Very few people get into this with, a businessman mentality where they're going to take over. These days, that's changing more and more with Instagram and that sort of crap, social media influencers. But I think initially, most people get into it because they want to do the right thing.
Yeah.
The problem is they get into it. The industry is so powerful with, here I go sounding ridiculous, but they have this propaganda. And it's so powerful that we end up believing the categories. And then once we believe in the categories and we believe in the product, we will buy into the hype of it. And we think, because I'm doing powerlifting, I'm getting stronger. Are you, or are you just getting good at those 3 lifts? Those
Yeah.
are 2 different things.
Yeah.
Just because your squat is shooting up doesn't mean you're actually getting stronger. Are you actually getting to be a more capable human being? Is the weight on the bar actually turning you into a stronger person, or are you just becoming a squatter?
Yeah.
Those are 2 different things. And
Chip,
we buy into these.
I now have 9 injuries and I can't tie my shoelace, but I did squat 500 pounds. So
Exactly.
joke's on you.
So
What is function? Okay, do you even need to tie that shoelace?
And it's funny, function
loafers, bro.
function in itself has become a category. And now you're seeing all this stuff done in the name of function.
Yeah, the ultimate bastardization of what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
In fact, there's a funny new category that's getting more and more popular that I joke about all the time. And I have a lot of friends who are involved with it. And so I love poking fun at them. The unconventional training. Now, I've been lumped into that category because I was the first guy in Sacramento to do the clubs and the kettlebells
Right.
and throw all these weird things in there and do those weird shit. And so everybody thought I was this unconventional trainer. No, I just found stuff that made you stronger. And I get to see all this unconventional training now. Just because you have a kettlebell doesn't mean you have to flip it and toss it and go side to side and go upside and do backflips with it.
Well, hold on. Are you doing the RKC version, or are you doing the
Exactly.
American kettlebell
Exactly.
version? Yeah.
And how many versions of strange kettlebell things can I do? If I start doing kettlebell dancing, it's not making me any stronger. So a lot of the unconventional training it's become another limited product where you end up with this one tool or these couple tools and you do weird shit with them, but it's not actually making you stronger. So you buy your own hype. You're so human investment is such an interesting thing. When you're invested in something, you're too scared to look at it with clear eyes.
Yeah.
Cognitive dissonance becomes a very powerful drug. And the more money and more time you invest, the harder it is to step back and go, this might be bullshit.
But it's also, I will say that I think it's all about, I will go back to what you said about the onus on trainers and leaders in the fitness community of the tribes is that as an educator, I think, or as educators, we have to acknowledge that the way we learn does include oversimplification initially. And just like when you see, what I think of is when my cats and we move into a new place, my cats will explore one room at a time, and they'll go one circle, and they're ever expanding their comfort zone, and their existential crises of realizing that, hold on, there's a whole other world outside there besides the apartment we used to live in. And making themselves more comfortable and thus more able and more free. And, as us being their caretakers, we have a duty to, show them that it's okay, not be like, hey, there's another room, and just take them out and throw them into it. So, because that'll make the cat just go back and hide under the bed. So I think I 100% agree with you, but I just want to make sure that for the audience and the trainers out there, while we can color outside of the lines because the lines are largely self-imposed, there is sometimes utility. Like if I wanted to expose someone at the level they're at, so a bodybuilder comes to me and goes, I thought powerlifting was bad for insert XYZ reason we've heard over the years. I go, well, hey, here's some elements of periodization. I go, what threads do bodybuilding share with powerlifting? And we'll make some connections, and all of a sudden now you've got this narrow tunnel to learning about powerlifting, and you've got these 2 schemas that are both inherently limited, but now you've got 2. And then once you realize that the world didn't fall apart and your gut didn't explode because you did a deadlift, now I can tell you something else, and I just think it is important that maybe not even intentionally, you can always plant the seed and just say, hey, remember, these are all just categories of movement.
So this was a big dilemma I was wrestling with.
Of course you thought about this.
Yeah, in fact, it's a big part of the book I wrote, Are You Useful by Chip Conrad. Available actually nowhere. Amazon, maybe. I have no idea where you can get my book.
Email him.
ChipConrad.com. You're like,
yeah, exactly.
Nope. Yeah.
Like, that's not a website.
That's not a thing. We'll make it one. How do you introduce people to themselves? For me, it's all about a relationship with the body. How are we going to have a better relationship with your body? And I think the fitness industry is actually promoting really crappy relationships with their body or distractions from your body.
No one has orthorexia. No one. That's just a made-up word.
I've been taught to ignore my hunger signals if I want to get shredded.
Ignore your feelings.
Being shredded is good. The lower my libido is, the better my inner strength is.
And you might have an idea of what I'm talking about here.
No.
You're totally.
Think about that instantaneous feedback that is made even worse, though, Chip, with today, social media, where before you might have that feedback of to derive value for myself, I must be in X shape. You know what I mean? Like I need to be lean. I need to be that. Now we're rewarded financially more so than ever before. So social media, you grow a following, you get validation, social validation.
For a look.
So all the dopamine response is enhanced 100 times versus before. I just want to quickly your commentary, because I'm going to be your hype man, where you're like, I shouldn't have ran about that. Guys, I don't let me rant. I'm like, do it, Chip. Do it.
Go.
Yoga for me is a really interesting one. One, because it purports to have some of that Eastern philosophy, but I think it's that deep-seated yearning most people have for some sort of spiritual connection on some level. And so they're kind of co-opting that while then commercializing the aspect.
It's like crystals.
Which is weird, because a lot of what, if you look at the origins of yoga and what they actually preach, commercialization would be almost the antithesis. So it's like this weird combination of the thing that it shouldn't be and then the thing that it's presenting itself to be. It's almost like a horror story with Red Riding Hood with the wolf, where it's, you know, trying to pretend to be the grandmother. It's like, wait a second, what are we doing here?
You're going to get me ranting about yoga in a second. I will. But real quick, that antithesis is apparent through all of fitness, where we are promoting suffering as empowerment. And we're selling it that way. And that's a bummer. But
it sounds like you're hating on bodybuilding, and I appreciate my monk-like existence where I whip myself.
Sure.
Okay.
That's a great relationship with your body. So
there's some healthy things to be said about masochism.
Here's the thing. And that's not entirely a lie. You're right. In fact, there's this great thing. I believe that balance is being able to understand the two separate extremes and find the middle, not necessarily staying in the middle.
Correct.
Balance is not moderation.
Balance looks like this.
Yeah, exactly. You have to play with both ends, and that's learning your body. That's opening a relationship. As long as it's not consistently abusive, you can learn a lot.
I always just abuse the people I'm in a relationship with a little bit so they come back. Balance.
Isn't that weird how that works?
I shouldn't tell them about my creatine abuse, should I?
Well, you did a couple lines of it before we started this thing, so I was picking up on it.
I think he noticed.
Okay.
Yeah. So here's a little thing about yoga. You're opening the door here.
Let's kick it open.
Modern yoga, what we're seeing done now is you can call it an evolution. It's a transformation of something that's been done for about 100 years, not the thousands of years that we think. The word has been around for a long time. What we're seeing now as a practice has actually started in India. It did actually start in India, but here's the interesting part. It was the India physical culture trying to find its own identity because they were under British rule for so long. There was part of the cultural renaissance.
Yeah.
And so a bunch of Indian physical culturists thought, let's create something of our own. Guess where they got most of the ideas from? Swedish and German gymnastics. They looked to the West, took a lot of those ideas and said, these are variations of maybe ancient asanas that we used to do, but let's play with these. And they took a bunch of stuff from the Western physical culture, and created their own beautiful version of it. So here we are borrowing from an Indian culture, which was borrowing from Western physical culture. So where this ancient practice comes in, it doesn't really.
Right.
The ancient yoga practice was not asana based. It was not pose based. It was not movement based. That was actually really low on the list. It was more about breathing and understanding. But there was even this time period leading up to the early 1900s, 1800s, where yoga was kind of a bad word. If you were a practitioner of yoga, you were probably a dirty street beggar who did stretching to get coins. Like you'd put the foot over your head to
like a
beg
contortionist.
Yeah, and you'd sit in the street wearing almost nothing at all, begging for coins, and you were considered low caste and dirty. It wasn't until they were part of that culture, and so they didn't. The word didn't become something good again because it started as a good word. It was a beautiful practice for many years, and then it had a falling out for a couple centuries, and it didn't become a good word again until the early 1900s, when some folks in India decided, let's create this new thing.
Right.
So what we're practicing now is not an ancient practice. It's actually a modern Western physical culture practice with some wonderful tweaks to it that has been tweaked again because what we're doing now looks a little different from 100 years ago even.
Sure.
And,
But it has that Eastern mystique, so it must
it's
be
got that mystique.
So it must be good.
Which is what's amazing about it is the fact it kind of reminds me of the arc perhaps of actors in the sense that 200, 300 years ago, actors were the lowest of the low.
Right. And, their technique was entirely different.
Yeah, so many different things. And then now it's one of the most popular things that you can do where we celebrate our actors.
You're
right?
literally a celebrity.
Yeah, yeah. As opposed to, same idea, I'm thinking of yoga where if I think of modern yoga, what's the image I have in my head to best encapsulate it? Actually, what they're trying to sell you, like the concept of yoga, would be a beautiful woman in great shape.
Lululemon pants.
Lululemon pants.
Definitely. Probably her parents were hippies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sunset, finding herself.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then trying to attach herself to this word and this meaning and this definition that we've come up with.
And to be clear, it is a great movement practice.
Yeah.
The problem is we've made it a category. And because we've made it a category, we've made it a cliche.
Because there's nothing wrong with these evolutions per se.
Yeah,
it's more of if we don't know their history, why they evolved.
Yeah.
Because culture changes, right?
Right. We should always know the history.
Yeah, culture can change. Culture
Always
should
know history.
change.
Yeah.
And cultures stagnate if they don't change. However, if you don't know why you're changing, how, or where you have been, and what change you should try to make.
Yeah.
How can you connect with it if you haven't learned its history and created your own philosophy from that place?
Well said.
And if you're taking somebody else's thought and making it your own, you're not deeply connecting with it. And I see that a lot in yoga. Now, I have seen some really great people get involved with yoga, and I've seen them change, and I've seen them grow, and I've seen them teach really well. So, I don't want to generalize the culture, but we can paint a pretty big brush with a pretty big brush and say that as a cliche, yoga is actually more limiting than they set it out to be, just like any of the other categories we've talked about.
I think that's true of all of them.
And so when in fact, what do people tell you when they talk about stretching? They're like, hey, I need to get more flexible. I should do yoga.
Yeah.
Not I should move more.
No.
Not I should explore my own range of motion and come up with something on my own. None of that. They're going to go do yoga, and which means they're going to buy the product of yoga and then instantly buy its limitations.
Right.
I've taught at a couple yoga studios. Actually, I've taught at yoga studios around the country where I come in and I do my little brand, which is I've stolen from yoga. I've stolen a lot from yoga, and I've tweaked it. And then I've added my own stuff from other disciplines and my own practice. And I call this little workshop, Yeah, But Is It Yoga? And I've done this around the country to a small degree. And it's always interesting to watch the yoga people go, oh, I can actually do that? I'm not limited to just this little mat.
Yeah.
I can actually hop over here. Wait a minute. I can add a little bit of speed to this. And, it's interesting watching their bodies suddenly realize, oh, I am kind of limited to what I can do. And, I do that with all sorts of disciplines, but it's fun with the yoga crew because
They think they're open.
they think they're open. They think they're flexible. They think they're strong, and they are within that discipline, just like a powerlifter is strong at 3 things.
Right.
And it's not guaranteed transfer to anything else.
Right.
Just because you have a 600-pound squat does not mean you actually have sport skill.
Absolutely.
Chip, funny aside, that's the revelation I've been having recently with kind of strength sports, in that I've wanted to connect with a younger version of myself where my mom was a sprinter, a very good sprinter, and as kids we would do sprinting, we'd play a ton of sports, have a lot of fun. And one of the disciplines that I enjoyed was just sprinting. And so I did it until the age of, probably 13, 14, got a little bit more into an academically focused school that, as I said in another episode, we had no football team. There was no gym when we said about training. It was devoid of all that stuff. But I really enjoyed it. And then recently with my brother, who's gotten into lifting at a gym, we thought ourselves, it would be nice to reconnect with that, with sprinting. We really enjoyed just doing that exhilaration, the feeling of being on, trying to, pursue maximal speed is just something fun.
It's a way to relate to your mother too, which is cool. Yeah,
definitely. And I actually think my mom could probably straight up still at the age of 68 still kick her ass because I know my times when I was a 12-year-old.
Right.
I know what I was able to accomplish. Best time is nothing impressive, just 12:60. But myself and my brother,
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
myself and my brother after years of lifting, I've spent the last decade in the gym. So it's not like I've been sedentary in quotations. It's not like I've been a couch potato. And I have done the things where you hear those, apocryphal because they turn out not to quite be true.
You squat, therefore you're strong.
Yeah, like Ben Johnson, the secret to his strength that no one really talked about. He was squatting 600 pounds. Like Ben was a freak. It's like, well, I've spoken to some sprinting coaches where the definition first off of the squat, it might be a half squat as an example, but everyone just hears 600 pounds. Ben was a freak. Cool. Anyways, I've been in the gym now for a decade. I also do cardio from time to time. So again, I'm not completely sedentary. I raced my brother and there was a track team there. And we timed ourselves, and I was a full second slower. Full second slower than my 12-year-old son. I was
20 years of training to lose a second.
I wasn't even 5 feet at 12 years old. You know what I mean?
And for those who don't know sprinting, a second's an eternity.
Yeah. It's like, so I've done all this stuff for all these years.
It's a 10% decrement in performance.
And I'm actually slower. I'm a foot taller now. I've had all these years of lifting, and one of the, let's say, sprinting or running is a pretty general endeavor, right? It's not hyper specific. Did not do well.
Yeah. And I'm in the same boat. This is hilarious to all my students and my fellow staff at AUT. So we have our monthly strength and conditioning meetings where the strength and conditioning students and department get together and we talk about something. We do a presentation, and then afterwards, all of them get together and they do sport. So they do fun sport. They make up games, touch rugby, water polo one time. It's all totally different. And that sounds like a beautiful expression, and I always don't do it. Because there's been a few things that have happened to me over the years. So shout out to Brody Hewlett. I participated in his study where we were doing repeated 40-meter sprints. On the last 40-meter sprint, strained my hamstring. Shout out to my advisor, John Cronin. He has this nice full body, basically like you can do almost any angle, push or pull with just body weight. And I strained my neck at his house up in the Kaimais when I was trying to train there doing, I think, like push-ups. And then shout out to, I'm forgetting who just totally dunked me, I should say, during water polo, where I had a sartorius hip flexor strain for like 2 months after playing water polo.
Dude.
And I realized I'm just a bodybuilder. I'm just a strength athlete. I'm going to do nothing besides lifting because... You know what? I've pushed it so far now in my 30s, and my body says you can't do anything.
Yeah,
I'm sure that's not true, but it's
We've
hilarious.
We've actually become tighter and more limited than, and that's why one of the observations.
The limitations are not only intellectual, is what I'm saying.
Exactly.
One of the observations I had, and we had an episode with Brian Miner, and we're talking about progressive overload. Mm-hmm. But one of the recent revelations I had is we will extol the virtues of, look at this older gentleman or this older woman that's accomplishing so much, like a powerlifter, 85 years old. Can you believe that? Yeah. One, there's survivorship bias, of course.
Sure.
But it's like, look at this 85, look at this 90-year-old man. He deadlifted 400 pounds. Wouldn't that be amazing? I've looked up now a handful of them, and you know what I see in common? Their training age is actually very low. Yeah. And so they started, it's like the guy that was 90, he started at 75. So his training age is actually my training age, in terms of what he's been doing to his body. And so we have kind of that myth or the thought in our head, 80 years, man, we're going to be lifting 80 years. Like, maybe we should change it up just a little bit, expand our definition.
One thing, I think there's a chapter in my book about this, Are You Useful by Chip Conrad. Available, who knows where.
ChipConrad.com.
I talk about.
I'm going to buy the domain for you.
Yeah, we're going to buy it and not have that book, but every single one of your other books.
Yep.
In fact, other people's books.
We're going to have my books on there.
Yeah, just put random, all your studies and just whatever.
Yeah.
Random pictures of you.
It's just going to be really ChipConrad.com.
Will be EricHolmes.com.
A tribute to Eric.
Yeah.
that's
a tagline.
Hey, one thing I write about is the concept of peaking. If I were to follow traditional protocol, I would have had 20 some years of going downhill now. I would have peaked when I was 28.
Yep.
And just the last 20 years would have been just me going downhill. Because I don't buy into that. If we can keep intellectually growing, why can't we keep physically growing? Not necessarily hypertrophy growing, but growing in terms of quality and ability. And so my goal has been to not specify on any one thing, but to explore what the hell's available. So next year I have different plans than what I had last year, and I just want to try things. It's recently started trying aerial silks. I'm no good at it, but it's totally fun. So you know what I'm not going to do? I'm not going to peak in that.
Right.
Unless I spend the next 20 years doing that, which I might. But you asked me if I was doing powerlifting competitions yesterday anymore, and I don't do powerlifting anymore because to put another 10 or 15 pounds on the bar is going to take so much time and effort at this point that I'm going to lose out on everything else.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I won't be able to do all the other things I want to do. I will become a squatter. I'm not going to use the squat to make me better. I was just going to focus on making the squat better at that point. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to peak. I want to keep exploring what's possible. And that's just my jam. So even you're saying...
I like that what you said right there, and I'll be a very short tangent. That is just your jam. I don't want anyone to think that we're saying you shouldn't specialize or it's inherently negative. But I think what we miss is we don't have informed consent. Like we tell people the myth.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because every trainer is the person who has a hammer and thinks the world is a nail, with different variations of the hammer and the nail. They think, hey, you want to be a good football player? You got to squat, bench, dead. Or you want to be a good football player? You got to be explosive, triple extend, therefore snatch, clean, and jerk. That's the only way to triple extend. Oh, you want to be a good football player? You got to flip these tires.
Functional
and smash
training.
These. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And they're all wrong.
Yes.
But it is totally fine if you were to say, hey, you want to be a good strongman at a high level, you're going to have to specialize in strongman. If you want to get as big as possible, there's going to be some different choices we choose around your nutrition or your training, et cetera.
And I need to add that caveat because you're exactly right. If you find joy in what you're doing, then by all means do it. Like for instance, people come to me all.
Just don't do anything else or you get hurt.
I think I told you guys this story yesterday where I talked to a friend of mine I haven't seen in years, and he said, "Oh, I'm trying to get in shape," and so I started running, and I hate it. Okay, so his new relationship with his body, he hates it.
Sounds good.
But he bought into the zeitgeist that running is supposed to be the thing, right?
That's the easy thing that you do. You start running.
Yeah. And we know that running is actually fairly low bang for your buck overall in terms of fitness. And if you hate it, it's even worse. It's making a disconnect with your body where you get through it any way possible, and that's never quality words for getting to know yourself well. So in that now, if he told me something else, if he said I love running, then let's make you stronger so you can run better.
Yeah.
But I rarely hear that. I know there's runners out there and they love it. I will discourage people from jogging unless they love it. So if they love it, and I tell people that I might be just completely rallying against whatever you love. If you love it, if you truly find joy in it, disregard what I'm saying. It does not matter. But if you're trying to sell that to everybody else
That's different.
as the magic panacea or whatever, yeah, that's a different story. There's that hammer nail again. So if you are a running guy, a jogging, and I should say jogging because to me running is sprinting. But if you're a jogging guy or woman and you want to show the world that it's very important, you're actually doing a disservice.
Right.
If you want to make people who find joy in it do it better, absolutely go for it. And that's maybe one of the biggest problems with these categories, like you said. If I'm a power lifter, everybody's going to power lift.
Yep.
So what I've found over the years is what are the common denominations of movement that are important and how can we train those? So in my book, I talk about Are You Useful by Chip Conrad.
.com.
If
areyouseful.com. Good.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Honestly, we need to buy that.
I feel like you should start typing right now.
You got about 4 weeks before this episode comes out, Chip.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Get that domain.
On it. If what I found is if we can pinpoint what is important movement-wise, picking something up off the ground, that's pretty important. To me, I believe crawling is pretty important. I think putting stuff over your head is pretty important. So I've narrowed it down to a small handful of what I call the lowest common denominator of movement choices. And how do I make those movement choices, those skills, I call them skills, how do you make those skills better? You can use powerlifting. You can't some of powerlifting. I don't think bench press has a lot of crossover personally, but I'm squatting and deadlift. I'm going to use it. I know. I will slaughter your sacred cows.
We agreed with you until you came after the bench press.
We have one idol that will not be smashed.
Hold on. There's a caveat to that too, actually. I find that bench press for women has huge benefits, way more than guys. we can actually do more with some other things. I think push-ups and variations of push-ups and body weight stuff is going to have way more transfer than bench press. For women, though, it's a whole different story because they have a whole different strength structure. And so they can sometimes find a lot of empowerment and turn on things in ways that push-ups they're going to take a while to get to. So different inroads. But so bench press might have a purpose, I guess.
And we're back.
Chip, if you were to choose between a push-up that you're able to load and a bench press, you'd choose the push-up.
Personally, yes.
Yeah, I actually don't disagree with that. I think the
Scapular movement.
Yeah, I think it's just the loading of push-ups that it's not ubiquitous in gyms, like a harness or anything that you could do.
It's a logistical issue versus anything else.
Well, I'll tell you this. I have a huge bunch of push-up variations that I would introduce far before I'd even load it.
Yep.
I've made entire videos about this, Body Tribe 1 on youtube.com, about push-up variations. And I find, because I found that hand balancing is something. You look at a gymnast. A gymnast is a strong motherfucker.
Yeah.
And
with
an applicable strength that no other strength discipline has. If I were to pick who's the strongest upper body athlete, I'm going to go with a gymnast. And
it's expressed in so many different planes and ways.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
If I don't care how much you can bench press or put over your head, try a planche. Just see if you can do a planche and watch how hard that is. And so if I'm going to make somebody stronger in their upper body, I'm going to steal from that. Before probably I'd use something like bench. Bench has a place though, because it's an easier setup and it's an easier thing to teach in many cases. But there's so many variations of body weight stuff that I think work really well too. But if I'm going to look at all the basic movements that I think are important to us, then I don't have to pick any discipline. I can steal bits from all discipline. That's why I steal a little bit from yoga. That's why I steal from strongman, powerlifting, weightlifting, even bodybuilding. And it's not about those limitations of those disciplines. It's about how do we build these movement skills.
Yeah.
And that way we can become moving individuals. Then if somebody wants to specialize in something, they have a great foundation to start from. So let's say I work with a weightlifter who's been weightlifting for years, and I look at my categories of movement, they're going to be great at 2 of them. They're going to suffer at all the other ones. So I break them down to being a beginner again.
Right.
And I start getting them strong on the other ones. And then if they want to keep weightlifting, we can go back.
I remember when you made me, you had me and Barb do different accessory movements is what my brain wants to say, even though they're just movements. When you had me
skills,
yes,
we'll call them skills.
Skills when I started nunchuck skills,
and balancing skills.
Remember that day you caught a bullet?
That was pretty awesome. I
in
was
your back.
I was in the ER for a week after, but for example, I remember you had me do crawls. You had me do squat. We did Olympic lifting, and I did some squats. I think I did some overhead pressing, and then I did the crawls, and that didn't go well for me.
It's interesting about crawls. I think they're hugely important. They can teach the body a lot of things. They can use musculature that you don't normally use, and they're ridiculously hard for adults.
Yes.
In fact, I worked with an ultra runner not too long ago, and he could do 100 miles upright. He could barely crawl 50 feet before he was dead tired. Just to show you how specification does not mean you're great at everything.
Right.
You know, you can run 100 miles does not mean you have the cardiovascular capacity to do anything.
Yeah.
Just means you're really great at that 100 miles. I got him to crawl about 50 feet. And he was so surprised. He was dying.
Yeah, it was the same experience for me. So I think, I really love like what you're essentially saying is a movement is movement, and
how you train it, steal from everything.
Yep. The smorgasbord of what's out there is something that,
because that way you instantly break down the limitations.
Yeah.
That way it's just a big collection of things that you get to pick from. You have a giant palette of choices, and if you're building movement skills, then you can pick from any of those choices, and you're suddenly your hammer has become a screwdriver and, and a power drill and whatever else you need.
Yeah, so I think it's just really valuable for us as trainers to, if you will be at a point in your career where you need to oversimplify things, you know, and there's what's that saying, you know, all models are wrong, but models are useful.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's, you can start there, and you can be the powerlifting centric, weightlifting centric, bodybuilding centric trainer, but you also have to know that it is a limitation that you're using as a way of conceptualizing it, learning it, and it's your door into physical culture or into movement, and that's fine. You come through your door, but just understand that there's veritably infinite doors.
And it's your responsibility to understand that if you're making the big goal, everybody's big goal, every client that comes to us as a trainer, everybody's goal can be boiled down to one thing: make a better version of me.
Yep.
No matter
Through
what,
my own definition.
Yeah, and I think they don't, and I think initially most people don't have an idea what that definition is,
correct,
because they've been taught by media.
Yeah.
And so they instantly think scale and mirror, scale and mirror. Right. Well, that I know a lot of people, and even you guys in the bodybuilding community know that most people have probably not found happiness that way. And so our first job as a trainer, well, two things. I think our first job is to teach movement before we teach exercise. Get them to understand how to move. Because I know a lot of people who can exercise, they can out-work out me, they can out-work out anybody, they can exercise all day, they have no idea how to move.
Right.
And so I think we should teach movement before we teach exercise, and we have to start teaching people how to come up with goals. Because if you can only base a goal on what your experience is. Right. And most people have a limited experience of what fitness is because of media. And so they're going to come to us with a very limited idea of what their goals are. So I think we need to be able to understand that they can have more goals. They just don't know it yet.
Right.
And so if they come to us and say, I want to train, and I'm a powerlifting coach, and I say, well, we're going to do powerlifting. Okay. Suddenly all their goals have been limited because we're limited.
Right.
So I'm hoping as educators, as mentors, we can I don't want to use the term leaders because then we have followers. I want to be an educator. And I want us to be an educator where we give more possibility, not less. A saying I use a lot with my clients is make better choices now so you have more choices later. Because the inverse of that is also true.
Right.
The worst choices you make now, you're going to have limited choices later.
You limit yourself physically and mentally later. Yeah, it's a really great point.
Oh, I'm super smart.
Oh, we know.
Yeah, you put on the glasses before we began the podcast.
Oh, I don't even need these. Yeah, these are great.
These don't have lenses in them. No. This is amazing.
Well, so a quick story about glasses. I realized I just got these recently because
old.
do you ever? Are you guys similar to your dads in terms of genetics? Like, do you see similarities?
About 50%.
So, yeah, I would say. Yeah,
roughly.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you.
33%, 1/3 God, Gilgamesh.
Sure.
Yeah,
no, I get it.
Yeah.
Nice.
But
in my case, I follow my dad's patterns. I'll tell you a quick story. He passed recently, and I was going through his stuff, and I found these family photos, and I saw this picture of me, and I'm like, I don't remember this picture. I was like, who is this person I'm talking to? There's a woman involved, and I don't remember her, and I don't remember this picture at all. And then I realized
it's your mom.
No, that's my dad.
No, I mean, it was the woman was your mom?
No, in fact, you'll like this because you're a jazz fan, right?
Yep.
It was Anita O'Day.
Really?
Yeah. So my dad hung out with her quite a bit because he was a jazz musician. He spent his whole life playing jazz. That's all he ever did.
How dare you disrespect then jazz? Yes, you weren't.
I love it personally.
Yeah.
I've been playing it my whole life, but
I'm telling you, Chip, it is for the people. I think it's the analogy that I would draw.
I hope so.
Is that it's similar to what you preach about fitness or what you talk about when it comes to fitness, that we've had a narrow definition, or we've narrowed even further our definition of music, but that doesn't mean it should be our definition of music.
Exactly.
And as you know, when it comes to all those chords, where I was just saying, Derek, like major, minor, it's like what about diminished? What about augmented? What about adding 9s, 11s? They create emotions greater than just happy, sad, like major, minor, wonderment, excitement, all these possibilities.
And I think for both music and movement and anything where there is a certain infinite level of complexity you can get to, we just have to appreciate that where someone starts, because we've been moving for a while. We've been thinking about movement for a while. You both have think about music for a while. I think about like anything that you really, really engage with, find meaning in, and you dive deep into. You just have to remember that.
So you just think about your wife all the time is what you're saying.
The complexity of I understanding Barb. For someone else to understand Barb, they got to start simple. She's a complex woman. I love you, baby.
We all do.
But yeah,
I love that you think she's watching the. Actually, no,
she's
no.
Absolutely not.
No. Let me back up because I make this joke about
I'm actually
Eric.
making a point.
Sorry,
though.
Go.
So I think we just have to remember that when someone comes new into music, they do need to be mentored to actually even appreciate jazz.
Yeah.
Right.
And just like when someone comes new into fitness, there's going to be not only unlearning because of what they've come to it from it, but there is more than that. there is simply, you have to study at the foot of a master, if you will.
Yeah.
But not that it needs to be that leader-follower thing, but just someone who has had
Teacher,
that depth.
educator, and student. That's
There
great.
you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds much better. Master. So it's just, you have to be able to really explore in that incremental way to get to that complexity. And I think it's easy for us sometimes to have that expert bias where we look back and we go, you're simplifying this so much, and realize that is an inherent step to understanding. Just want to keep throwing that out
Shut
there.
up, Eric. So anyway, back to music.
So everyone should love jazz.
The last little analogy I do want to bring when it comes to music and fitness, because I like both of them a whole bunch, would be that there's a fantastic musician called Lino Lueke, and
It's a great name.
A lot of people marvel at him. He tours a bit with Herbie Hancock and a bunch of other musicians. But growing up, people over here in the West marvel at his time signatures and his choices. Like, well, wait a second. It's like, what are you doing, man? Is that like a 13/8, and then you're doing it with your mouth, and you're independently doing all these polyrhythms? Like, this is insane. Like, we got to quantify these things. And what he simply said is, these are the rhythms the life rhythms I grew up with. And actually, if you repeat it in person in my community, this is the language we speak. And so to us, maybe because we have these rigid definitions of music where it's like, what 13/8, how do we define this? For him, it is simply just music. Yeah. And so the same idea I could think when it comes to movement, where we try and label ourselves, or we try and belong to some of these tribes, and we try and have these narrow definitions, but to someone else, depending upon where they come from or what their conception of fitness or lifting or just physical culture, it might vary differently, and it might be, in ways, I do use that word a little bit more holistic.
Yeah.
Where for it's like I'm a bodybuilder. This other person, it's like, well, I grew up X places. I did some gymnastics. I did this. I did sports. I did a whole bunch of things, and I like movement. And we're like, I'm gonna stick to curls.
Yeah. And I think in each one of these categories, you both need the boundaries, and you need to know that they are false, and then they should be pushed.
Yeah.
It actually reminds me of politics. Right, or even
our favorite topic,
or I would say even just political theory. Yeah. Like, you need conservatives who can define things and say, hey, well, let's hold on, let's not blur the lines too much, because individualism is important. But then you also need liberals to go, but do we still need the society rule? Can't we just push past that? And it's the interplay of, I think, both of those people that makes a functional society, so that you can actually progress forward, but not have communitarianism suppress an individualist, and not have an individualist sacrifice the greater good. So I think that whether it's music, movement, political theory, relationships, you have to understand that boundaries are artificial, but they have utility when they do, but not when they don't.
It's tough in a culture that does not promote free thought to understand that.
Yes.
We do actually cultivate obedience.
I would agree.
And the following mentality. And look, I use the word leader follower, and how I'm not a fan of that. It's because I see so much now in the fitness industry. The new thing now is fitness leadership. And all these people are selling workshops on how to be a fitness leader, not a fitness teacher, not a fitness instructor or a fitness ambassador.
Yeah.
A fitness leader. Every tribe can only have one leader, but it can have as many people as are in the tribe, teachers.
Sure.
And so I'm hoping we can change the idea of a leader to a mentor or a sifu, rather than I'm out in front pulling you all with me.
Yeah. I do think it all depends on that definition of leader, but I do think too many people have the schema of leader being something that's top down.
Right. And you can see it on something like social media. What are you called if you are a big player on Instagram?
An influencer.
Which
sounds grossly manipulative.
As I say, influenza.
Yeah, you are an illness.
You are an influenza. Yeah. Fitness influenza.
And being an influence can be a great thing. That's not what they're talking about.
No.
They're not talking about inspiration. They're not talking about motivation in the true sense of either one of those words. They're talking about actual marketing propaganda.
Yeah.
They're actually talking about brainwashing.
Puppeteering, yeah.
And so, kids, if you are actually listening to any influencer right now and taking their words for gospel, stop.
Now, here's a really good segue, because I think we've had a really good discussion around how to think about fitness.
Have you ever ridden a Segway?
No.
I haven't either.
But they look fun. Mall cops.
That's a trend that I'm glad came and went.
No, we need to ride Segways
I love
today.
that you just took a segue and tangented it to a segue.
Yeah.
That's kind of
Chip
like
is like me squared.
meta.
Where
It's-
normally what I do, Chip, I'm the one that is tangential. But then we have you on, and I love it because then,
segueception.
yes,
Yeah.
You can
it's
take a
good.
break.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think
I don't
discussing
wanna do the tangent.
discussing
Chip, you understand?
actual sifus, discussing like actual teachers. You've had some. Not only have you been one, and one I've valued in my life, but you have engaged with some really cool teachers, and you've met a lot of really interesting people. So I know. I just want to open the floor up. What are some of the like cool story time people you've got to meet, hang out with, and learn from?
Well, you mentioned earlier how sitting at the feet of the master, that phrase, I actually kind of like that phrase because I think that's how people learned for years and years.
Yeah, it has a respect element.
Yeah,
to it.
there's the apprentice mentor concept. I think is great. And when I first got into this fitness stuff, I realized the information I wanted I couldn't find. You know, again, back to the bodybuilder magazines, they were the same thing every month: abs, biceps, chest. Eat this stuff and buy these supplements.
God, I love it.
And after
Eric's like, it's complete and perfect.
You're right. I'm so glad you're on the podcast. Yeah.
So, recently, I should tell you, recently, this guy contacted me out of the blue. He was on his deathbed, and he had collected every issue of
Muscular
Iron
development.
Man, muscular development,
Flex.
muscle, flex. What's the
Muscle and fitness.
muscle and fitness for the last 20 some years. And he had some of the older stuff too, like the old muscle
Strength
and
and
health,
health.
strength and health, and those. And he needed to get rid of it. He's like, it's just taking up room in the house now. And then his wife contacted me just a few days later, say he passed. Can you come get this? And I'm like, I don't know what to do with that. I love some of the old magazines, but all the past 20 years, they all are the same thing over and over again.
There's some gems in there. You might have to look hard, but
Eric's like, I've published in one of those.
There was a period of time where I had a bedroom full of over 2,000 magazines, and I finally found a bodybuilding aficionado who took them off my hand for me. But I'm sorry it wasn't you.
hey, it's all good.
Yeah. Anyway, I found that I wasn't getting the information I wanted from those magazines, and at the time there was no internet, or it was a burgeoning new thing, and there definitely was no YouTube yet, and so the information was pretty scarce. If you were lucky, you could go take a certification or a workshop from somebody cool, but it wasn't happening too much. And that I realized to get what I wanted, I had to go literally sit at the feet of the masters. And that's how you were talking about Mel Siff. That's originally how I hung out with Mel Siff. He had this forum back when forums were a thing on Yahoo groups. Remember the old Yahoo groups? He had a Yahoo group called Super Training, named after his famous book. And this was way before Super Training Jim or Mark Bell or any of that. The original Super Training was a famous book written by Mel Siff and his Yahoo group. And I was on that Yahoo group, and it was so overwhelming, the information that was on there. I didn't even participate for like the first 6 months. I just kind of read everything. I thought, oh my God, Verkhoshansky's on here, and Zatsiorski's on here, and some of the West Side guys were on there, and there's some names that you just Yeesus was on there, and you're like,
wow.
Whoa, all these people. And eventually I started participating a little bit at a time. You get schooled fast on there, and it wasn't flaming, it wasn't violent, it wasn't an attack culture, but it was a you better know your shit
It was
culture.
an accuracy culture.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
And so if you posted something, you'd better be able to stand up to the scrutiny.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you posted something and it was
Factually incorrect.
if you stated anything,
Yeah.
you better be willing to back up that statement. So it taught me so much about how you got to know your shit.
Yeah, I came up in the second generation of those forums, basically.
Okay. And so eventually I learned a lot. I met a lot of cool people online, and he started talking about these strength camps that he was going to begin. And this is Mel Siff. At the time, outside of this community, nobody really knew who he was, but those in the community knew who the hell he was.
Yes.
And he said, yeah, you come to my house. There's like 8 people.
Come to my
Come
house.
to my house. He had this whole basement set up. It was like a dormitory basement setup, and you could hang out down there. It was a full kitchen and bathroom and everything. And then he had his gym right upstairs, and then outside he had some stuff. And so it was his house, and you go there and you stayed for a few days. The first time you stay, he just welcomes you with open arms. The man was insane. He would be we'd be in the hot tub with him until like 2 a.m. And then we'd all be exhausted because it was just a day of training. And then he'd go on his computer for another couple hours and moderate his form. And then at 8 a.m., he's on our door going, "Come on, let's go train." He died of a heart attack. Surprise. He was
At what age?
He was early 60s, I believe.
That's
really?
fine. He made it to the 6. That's good. A little bit of A-type personality. It's still worth it.
Yeah, I mean, he was on fire, and he was just a fun-loving guy, kind of a perma smile, but which is different from his book. If you read his book, you read Super Training, it's very dire, it's very dense.
Dense is the perfect word to describe super training. There's a joke that me and shout out to Nick Tuminello always say is that everyone has super training, but no one's really read super training.
Yeah, you read it in chunks. You're like, okay, you get through that first chapter and you're like, I just read everything I need to know.
Mm-hmm.
And then you realize, oh, there's like 16 more chapters.
Yep.
He was, but that wasn't his personality. I don't know if you ever read Facts and Fallacies of Fitness. It was his other book.
I haven't.
It's much goofier. It's kind of a playful book. And that was his, I would say that's his denouement, actually.
Okay.
Because it's kind of fun. Not as dense. And a lot of the stuff now doesn't really apply because the culture has changed so much, but it's a fun book compared to Super Training. So he invited us. He charged $140.
That's a tenth of what
He
cheap
lost money
price.
on the food that he fed you.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It covered the cost of the hot tub. That's
It
about
gets worse. He charged $140, and then he gives us open invitation to go anytime we want.
Wow.
He's like, he was
You get a subscription to his house for $140.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He had this, and he's from South Africa, and apparently in his culture in South Africa, you show up at someone's door, you take them in.
Yep.
And so he's like, you show up at my door, you can stay down here.
Yep.
Oh, I did. And so I went out and visited him a few times. I mean, I told him ahead of time, but
Sure.
I didn't have to. He didn't care. And so I got to go out there quite a few times and learn and work from him. And it's just, here's the big takeaway from Mel Siff. Yes, he can tell you all of the physiology stuff you need to know. He can tell you how the brain works. He can tell you how the central nervous system works. He can tell you how the biomechanics and all that stuff. And if he didn't know, he was going to find out for you. I mean, he was that guy, always up on the research. I mean, Super Training was nothing but pure research.
Yep.
But his true thing was, for God's sakes, think for yourself. Build your own filter and process the information. Don't take anything at face value. And I mentioned his forum was kind of like that. You had to know your shit. Well, his whole goal was create your own filter. I called it learning how to learn.
Learn to learn. Yep. I was just going to say that.
And his thing was that was the takeaway.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I think that's the biggest thing we can learn from someone. And so for someone to teach that to you and you to recognize it, that means you had a master teacher.
Yeah.
And so in my mind, he was a master teacher.
Would you say he was one of the biggest influence on you, or are there others?
In terms of saying figure shit out,
Yeah.
he was the biggest influence. And which is that means probably the most important person.
Yeah.
And I'm going to give shout out to my parents for this, though,
Sure.
because what he did was he told me what they've been telling me my whole life, which was come up with your own foundation of knowledge, understand it, learn it, verify it.
But you needed someone besides your stupid parents to tell you that, basically.
Well, yeah. My stupid, brilliant parents. And so what he did is he put it in the realm of what I was studying.
Right.
And so I realized, oh, okay, there is some stuff in those bodybuilding magazines that's okay, but then there's this whole world out here and how to process it. And you build a filter. And I called it the bullshit filter. He had another name for it. I can't remember what he called it, but he had a phrase for it where you process catchphrases and stuff like that. What do these really mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah. So in terms of overall importance for building my own philosophy, he'd probably be number one.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a pretty cool number one.
Yeah. Yeah. In retrospect, at the time, nobody knew who he was. So he wasn't this, major underground celebrity.
Right.
But in retrospect, holy crap. Yeah, I got to learn from Mel Siff.
It's a similar story where Mark Ripito, I heard Sean went to his seminar. For the low price of, I think it was $2,000, you could stay with him in Wichita Falls in one of the bunk beds.
Mm.
And
Same exact thing.
The same exact thing, and it's an open house. You might get shot if you don't inform him beforehand. But Sean made the joke where he said it was $2,000 to attend the weekend retreat or whatnot, and he said it was a further $2,000 for Rip to put you to bed himself. Like, just the idea, like Sean's just that guy, cracking those jokes. But what a true way. There's a film, and of course I gotta do my references, Eric.
You're great at that.
Akira Kurosawa.
So surprising.
Metadeo, his last film.
Yeah.
See, Chip's a man of culture, I can tell. What just the concept of the mentor, student, the educator, and
that's
how they
kind of
revere.
a master film for that. In fact, that's a really, I didn't.
Chip.
I'm
we
glad
homies, bro.
I'm glad you reminded me of that film because I'm gonna recommend that to people for that reference.
Yeah, no, honestly,
I'll go with the Karate Kid.
Because the Karate Kid.
I mean, he ripped off the Karate Kid.
Yeah, it was actually released. In fact, it was his last film. It was released after. So Chip,
I'm the hipster here for this one.
As two people that like both of those movies, Karate Kid influenced Kurosawa-san. I think it's just fascinating how, in general, where you said we do crave or we are led to be obedient in the society, but I do think in general humans via religion, spirituality, hierarchies that we create, we seek understanding, but we also, through a sifting process, we want to try and gravitate towards individuals not only we respect, but we feel that they have some sort of knowledge. And so it's kind of a sacred trust that you have between a mentor and a student. And when that's perverted, is where it gets dangerous.
Well, I think we want that. Absolutely, we are seekers of that.
Yeah.
The problem is our culture is kind of lazy.
Yeah.
So we believe in the Instagram
the
stars.
person that says that they are the mentor. Oh yeah, no, I could help you instead of the person.
I'm the mentor. If you give me $5,000, I'll be your mentor.
I think a lot of it is also playing on the insecurity of and sometimes it's a self play, the insecurity of the individual seeking out the person they put on a pedestal.
Yeah.
Because if you are lacking something, if you need guidance, even though the answers are internal, that's something that you always learn. Like, you get the advice that you already were thinking, and then you take it. You're basically saying, I have this certain level of insecurity, so I need to look outward to get it. So I'm going to put you on a pedestal for the qualities I wish I have that I actually probably do have, that I don't believe. And then if you capitalize on that and say, yes, I am the guru, that can suppress me and keep me as a follower who never really develops that understanding that Mel Siff taught you. However, if you go, they're reaching out to me, and you help them actually learn that you have these keys and help them unlock and develop their own filter or whatever Mel Siff used, I think that's just, I think that's a normal thing. And I agree with you.
Yeah.
And I think it does come from just the simple lack of experience or self-awareness and self-efficacy, but that can be cultivated by a good sifu or master, if you will, because that's how they got there, and it's more of just this pulling up process versus this looking down process.
I hope our culture can learn to understand again that it is a process that takes a while, and I think part of the reason we gravitate towards the Instagram gurus or whatever is because it's instant gratification.
Yeah.
I got a guru now. I'm going to learn my stuff.
Yep.
Yay me. Instead of, I do actually have to walk the earth. I do actually have to sit at the feet of the masters. It's a process, and it's ongoing, children.
Yeah, the master shows you the path, not doesn't give you the destination as a shortcut.
Aww.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think
so deep.
A weird example sort of not only are in ways youth obsessed culture, but how we pervert the process of becoming a mentor is the one I could think about. Honestly, is a silly one, but it's the truth. In Spider-Man, I like to read comic books as a kid, still do.
As you should.
And Aunt May, Peter Parker's aunt, is very old, right? And it is this person, and Uncle Ben was with great power comes great responsibility. these individuals that have lived a lot of life, and they have these very true statements or wisdoms to impart on Peter. And if you actually look at the films over the last 20 years, the Aunt May character, so in the original Tobey Maguire one, Aunt May is about what you expect, 70 years old, like, and she's this kind woman with a lot of warmth and imparting all this wisdom. And then they did the first reboot, Amazing Spider-Man, and it was, I'm blanking on her name, Sally Fields.
Yep.
And she was 20 years younger, and she's a little bit more hip. You know what I mean? And even Spider-Man too. Spider-Man has become younger, and so has Aunt May. And then now in the latest one, Marissa Tomei, who I think is a very good actress.
Yeah.
Very good actress.
But she's like 30s.
She's like Aunt May is hot. Like,
yeah, exactly.
never reading the comic books, you're like, Aunt May can get it. You're she's a 75-year-old, highly intelligent woman that is looking after her, has this motherly role. And now they're kind of, in the latest one, they're kind of buddy-buddy. You know what I mean?
It's
like
a 14-year-old and the friendly 32-year-old aunt.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, and that kind of, in ways, encapsulates some of the stuff going on, I think, now.
Just fast track it, baby.
Yeah. Next, it's going to be, the aunt's going to be 18 years old and Peter Parker's 6.
With great power comes great responsibility. Come on, Spider-Man!
You're the man! Chip.
So old people rock is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Survivorship bias.
True.
There is there's that writer Nassim Taleb where he says essentially a part of the reason why the classics exist is that you shouldn't trust intuitively, oh, this book has survived 1,000 years, therefore it's the best. But through the general sorting process of time that occurs, if you selected a random book from today, it's a 0% chance. You don't know. It's random, right?
There's a difference between this book is correct and this book is at least not wrong.
Yeah. Like, it survived enough where it's probably all things being equal. It probably might have a little bit more merit than a random book. Yeah. Right, and that's important.
Like Dan John says when he talks about training athletes.
Who?
If you got Dan John,
who's that?
I don't know if you've heard of him.
Jonathan.
Yeah. If you got better,
love you, Dan.
I was right.
Yeah.
And he's what he's saying there is that nothing that I've done has actually been a barrier to your success. We tried something, we made a plan, and it was successful. Yep. And that's all we can know right now.
Yeah.
So I do think that is an element of what you're saying, is that if something has survived the test of time and provided wisdom or utility for decades or hundreds of years, we at least know it's not wrong enough to be a barrier, right? And I think that's sometimes with science, and I'm a part of this, we conflate the idea that we actually know something, when in reality we are just disproving a bunch of things to get closer to truth.
Yep.
But we never actually get there. It's just a process that is actually observation. It's a little more rigorous, and that's no different. It's a different, the different aspects to it, but that's not actually different from what we're talking about. So
I just can't wait till Peter Parker's a toddler.
He's a baby.
He's a baby.
And Aunt May's is, yeah, exactly.
Chip, I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. Is there any aspect that we talked about that you want to circle back to, or anything where this is your opportunity, as you said, to rant? I enjoyed them, so I don't think it can truly be a rant. Because rant to me has a negative connotation associated with it.
At his age, yes.
Yeah.
Anything Chip says is a rant.
It is a rant.
And it's a cloud that he's talking to.
Back in my day. Yeah. No. Is there anything that you want to circle back to or talk about?
It always comes back to making a better relationship with your body. Yeah. And if you're a teacher, a trainer, helping other people get a better relationship with their body, for me, that's what's important. And I hope we can do it from a place of integrity and compassion and empathy, and create something that's not abusive and has longevity. And the best way to do that is to actually give that person, that client, the power to do it themselves.
Yep.
I love that I have clients that have been with me for 12, 13, 14 years. But the truth is, I could walk out the door, they're going to be fine. It's just they're not relying on me. They just want to know more of what I know.
They're appreciating it.
Yes, and I love that. I have nobody at my gym who is necessarily relying on me.
Yep.
And actually, that's how I want it. We're more of a congregation at this point. And I have this dream of ultimately not charging for what I do. I just kind of want to provide a space and the education. I mean, I can't now because everything costs something.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm trying to come up with this program now. I don't know if I'm going to be able to launch it successfully or not, but I want to do a pay what you can program.
Yeah.
Come join my groups. Pay what you can.
Yep.
Yeah, because I want us to move as a tribe better. I want us to be stronger as a tribe. We've got shit going on. I've boiled purpose down to 3 things for me: provide, protect, play. Those are the big 3. And so everything I do in my training and what I train other people for is for those 3 things: to provide, to protect, and to play. What that means, and that's for me. Maybe you have a different purpose, and maybe you come up with different ideas. But if anything,
biceps,
calves. But the goal is get your people, get your tribe to come up with their purpose.
Right.
Once they find their purpose, we can gear the training towards that. They have to come up with it. All you can do is be their Sherpa on the journey.
Nice.
Sherpa on the journey of life. And everything I do comes back to that. So I could rant more and more about that and how the industry isn't about that. But frankly, let's just focus on what we can do, and that's be better Sherpas.
Awesome. I think that's an excellent thing to leave the audience with. If people want to get a little more of your philosophies, your thoughts, or actually come to Body Tribe.
I don't know if I mentioned this book. It's called Am I Useful? No, wait.
Are You
Useful? Whatever the fuck my book is called.
He's not, but are you? Yeah.
Now, I honestly think you should just buy the website, chipconrad.com, by the time this launches.
Or
There'll be a
Are
link
You
in the
Useful?
description.
Are You Useful?
Are You Useful? You for sure will need a .net or something.
I'm going to dump some money on GoDaddy today, apparently.
There you go. But you do have an Instagram, though.
Yeah, Body Tribe Chip.
Mm-hmm.
Chip Conrad on Facebook.
Yep.
We do have a Body Tribe website, but it's basically just for the gym. It's not really. I mean, you're not.
You're in NorCal. It's worth checking out.
Oh, by the way, if you are visiting from out of town, come check us out. I don't come play. I don't charge people to come down if they're from out of town. Just come show up, have some fun with us.
Awesome.
Yeah, man. Definitely check it out. We're going to link everything in the description. This is Chip Conrad from Sacramento, another Sacktown boy. I want to thank Chip for being on. If you enjoyed this episode of Iron Culture, you can help us out by leaving a rating and review on iTunes. We're fighting, I think I showed you, Coach. I forget what it's called. We're battling. Every week we're in the health category. We're in the top whatever. But there's so many sexual health podcasts.
Battling the silly sexual health podcast.
There's something we haven't talked about, apparently.
Yeah. No, we got to get it. We just need a rebrand, baby.
Yeah.
But if you like it, a rating and review on iTunes, sharing with a friend, and on YouTube, if you leave a comment, we'll try and do our best to respond. We'll catch everyone on that next episode every single Monday.